Yay Networks.
Welcome to Greg Louganis is Alive, the podcast that challenges what you think you know. I'm your host, Greg Louganis, and yes, I'm still alive. And I'm joined with my good friend and manager, Beth Zinman.
Hello, Greg.
Hello.
I feel like I haven't seen you in so long because we had like a little mini break on recording the podcast, and then you've been really busy.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of crazy. I had a workshop, dog agility workshop, 2 days, and then I competed for 2 days, and then I had another 3-day workshop for dog agility. So it's all dogs.
Yeah. So you were gone like in the RV with the pups for a while.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad it worked out because we've been having issues with the RV, and but I've kind of did a workaround, as it were. So yeah, but it was nice. It was good. We've got a lot of homework to do.
Yeah, I saw G was like extra hyped up, and yeah, he was like, "Okay, where now, Dad? I would just want to go."
Yeah, bark spin. So we got to work on it. Anyways, but here we are.
Yeah. So what's happening today?
Well, today we're talking about what a spiritual life looks like and how contemplative practices can fit into our day-to-day life.
Mm. Yeah. One of my favorites, especially to talk about with you. I love this.
Yeah, because that spiritual journey, it's really fascinating. I'm doing, diving into, a lot of different modalities and a lot of, intentions, so it's great. My guest today is Clementine Moss, the founder and drummer of Zepparella and author of From Bonham to Buddha and Back.
That is cool.
I watched some of her videos, and I just loved the way she talked about the performance and getting into flow, and also the process in getting there.
Mm-hmm.
That's what a lot of people don't really kind of understand. The homework involved, the intentional work that you do. Clem moved to New York City after graduating college with a creative writing degree, and her writing path gave way to a musical one when she found her love in drumming. In 2016, she began her blog Bliss and Drumming, which served as an inspiration and source material for her book, which was published in February of 2023. She's a spiritual counselor and non-denominational minister at the Foundation for the Sacred Stream in Berkley, California, and using the modalities of depth hypnosis, which I want to learn more about that. I'm fascinated by that, and applied shamanism, energy medicine, which I'm totally in sync with that. It's because everything's energy.
Yes.
Sound healing and Morphic Awakening techniques. Clem has an active healing practice and is also certified in contemplative psychotherapy and conflict resolution. So I'm really looking forward to kind of diving into this topic.
Yeah. It sounds super cool. I mean, this is, one of those spaces you and I connected on, and we're like, oh, cool. Like, you're into that. Oh, cool. So right. Yeah, I know that this is something, you're really into and very inquisitive about. I mean, personally, I love the, understanding the principles of energy. How I'm always like, it goes back to the hermetic principles of like energy, and we all, our energy, we're interacting with each other on an energetic level. And a lot of, what happens in our day to day, goes really like that is the source. It's not all these other layers, that we've put on through our lives. So this is going to be cool. And I think that your listeners are going to enjoy this very much and hopefully learn something.
Yeah. So we'll be back with Clementine Moss after this break. So Clem, you do breath work, right?
I do. Mm-hmm.
I loved that you bring meditation into your teachings.
Yeah. Yeah. Meditation is really where, where my spiritual inquiry became practice.
Mm-hmm.
And, I feel like as I was growing up, I was always interested in the big picture, and I was an avid reader. So mostly through literature, I was so excited about the big questions. And when I went to my first 10-day silent meditation retreat, and learned a technique of watching my mind, learned how to observe my attachments, my aversions, my reactions. That's just transformative. When I realized, oh, my thoughts aren't me.
Mm.
Everything shifted in my life, and I really set out on a practice of being able to be fully in the world, but to be able to not cause myself more suffering by overly reacting to the situations in my life. It's a tricky thing because I think we can use those practices as a way of escaping, which I certainly have in my life.
Right.
And then, in the past several years, I've really understood that no, the reason we do those practices is so we can really be 100% in our moments. Yeah.
Yeah, because I get that. Yeah, we can escape there because it's seemingly safe. And the one thing that I noticed for myself is not taking responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
There's a part of that a piece of that that it's not me. It's not me. Also, embracing all of us, the light and the dark.
Yeah. I think, this is such a hot topic these days, right? About, mindfulness, and meditation and all of these practices. And a lot of it is about healing our past, healing our trauma, healing our misidentifications, with the ego. But I really like to say up front that I think ultimately the job that we're doing in these things is to understand that my suffering is the same as the suffering of others. My relieving of my own suffering is in order to open my heart more fully, more compassionately to the other. And I think we get a little bit lost because so much of it, we're Americans, right? Or many of us are Westerners. And it really is about, being, optimized, the optimized human, being the best I can be. And I think that we forget that the end goal is to realize, to open our heart to the other, to other beings, to other people. And really, because that's really where, all of our healing lies, is in that kind of open-hearted compassion.
Right. And it's like and there's really, at the core, there's no separation, we're all connected. And so, and have effects on each other, either positively or negatively, that
right.
really are, one,
Yeah. And, I see the ways, when I'm with somebody who's really irritating, the crumb out of me, I can oftentimes realize that what's irritating me most is that aspect of me,
Right.
that they're reflecting back to me,
Right.
and that's kind of a big awareness that has come to me.
So, Clem,
Yeah.
where's drumming, and where is that?
Yeah.
Because like when you were one of the videos that I saw, you were talking about performance and getting in flow and all that, and I just so related to, and also how you get there. It's not, it's, you need to practice it. That's the key that I felt that you delivered, is that it does take practice.
It does take practice. And I love that I'm speaking to you about this, because in watching you, in your performances, I was always, I think even before this was even conscious in my mind, I was always thinking, where is his mind in that? Where is his mind in that unbelievable feat? And I think it's probably the same place where it's both highly focused and also this wider awareness of everything. And so it's not like when I'm playing drums, if I'm doing something, so if I'm doing 5 different things with my voice, if I'm counting out loud and then my limbs are doing these 4 other things, I can't think, uh-oh, my left foot. Because if I think, uh-oh, my left foot, everything falls apart. Right. Because it's kind of like my mind gets focused in a place other than that wider awareness within everything, in which everything is happening. And I almost see it as a circle. When I'm in the middle of this circle of movement, my mind can both be highly aware of everything that's happening and yet not focused on one particular thing, right? So that wider awareness is what we are looking for in meditation, right? And when I'm doing a kind of insight inquiry meditation or vipassana meditation, what I'm doing is I'm observing sensations on my body, right? Or when we're looking at the breath, we're watching how our mind tries to escape what we're doing. We're watching how our mind wants us to be in the future or in the past. We're watching all of the movements of the mind. And yet when we don't react to it and we continue with the practice over and over and over, what happens is we do become aware of our thoughts moving in and out like clouds in a sky, but that bigger sky is that awareness. So it's not that I'm checked out, that I'm not aware of everything that's happening in the room. And yet I'm still in that awareness in which it's allowing everything. And I have a feeling does that sound kind of like your experience when you were in those, in diving in those moments?
Yeah. Well, okay. So in diving, a dive takes less than 3 seconds.
Right.
And in that 3 seconds is your creation. And in that creation is total chaos. Because it is letting go of judgment. It is allowing. You have sensations, within your body. Okay, your balance may be a little bit off, so I make this adjustment, that adjustment, that adjustment. But when we focus on the problem, the balance being off, our tendency is to overcorrect. So, and in diving, it's such a precision sport. It has to be just enough of an adjustment for success. And that's the other thing that I when I teach, to not focus on perfection. Perfection is unobtainable, but perfection is always the goal. you're striving towards. And it really is that journey. And when you take the perfection aspect out of it, then it's easier to let go of the judgment.
Mm-hmm.
Because perfectionism, perfectionism can paralyze you.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah.
And so it is about, how can I make, it's not going to be perfect. If you have you're off balance on your takeoff, then it's not going to be perfect. But how good can you make it? That was always my challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And coaches said, "Oh, I never saw you miss the board." And it's like, no, I missed the board a lot. It was just that I taught my mind to kind of shut off in the thinking of what, of the whole judgment side, to quiet that down, to allow my body to do what it was trained to do. And, when you talked about some of the music that you've played, you tap into, it's almost an awareness, but not awareness, right?
Yeah. It's kind of like a timelessness.
Yeah.
That's what I always imagined when you're diving, that you have a different relationship to time. Yes, it's 3 seconds, and yet so much transpires within your being in that amount of time. I can imagine that if you really were to think about it, it almost is as if there is no time, or time slows down, or all of those things that happen, where it really is outside of the time that you walk around with on your daily life, right?
Yeah, and the thing is, it's not. Life is always changing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I have had experiences where, everything was like in slow motion, and I was in such control, and had that experience that it was in slow motion and effortless. There were other times when there was like no conscience. I know I took off the board, but I'm in the water. I don't know what the heck happened. Where it's totally unconscious, not aware, and also the experience. I remember World Championships in Madrid. I was aware there were people in the stands and all that, and cameras and all, but the only things that existed in my focus was my coach, the diving board, and me. Everything else was kind of a blur. Even my mother was in the audience, and everything else was in a blur. But then in '84 at the Los Angeles Olympic Games, I was aware of everything. Mayor Tom Bradley came in late, and I said, "Hey, Tom, you're late." He goes, "Look, I'm trying to find my seat." In between rounds, I was shouting down to him, and but that experience, the way that we experience those things, we can't get locked into it has to be this way.
That's right. That's right.
To open up that possibility, because if we open up the possibility, there's more chance for getting to that place.
Yes. Yeah. And that judgment that you were speaking of at the beginning, I remember when I started really investigating my mind and realizing, wow, every thought I have is a judgment. Every thought I have is a judgment about how this moment is either like something that came before, isn't as good or bad as something that came before, and is informing what I'm anticipating that it might become, right? I'm judging everything. And I think that's because that's the purpose of our thoughts. I read a book a long time ago about our thoughts being just physiological processes, right? That rise up because of our DNA and because of our history, and that our thoughts, the idea of controlling our thoughts is just the same as trying to control the movement of our blood through our veins. It's physiological.
Right.
And so our job is really to understand our relation to our thoughts.
Mhm.
And if our thoughts are really based most of the time, that judgment is fear, right? And it's a fear. And it's important that our thoughts are always alerting us to fearful things, because our thoughts want our brain and our heart to get oxygen. That's their job. That's its job. That's our thoughts' job. And so when we can step back from the thoughts, recognize, okay, here's this aspect of me that's really ultimately trying to keep me alive.
Mhm.
But I don't have to react to them in the way that I always have, where I'm just kind of following thought to thought to thought to thought. There's another way of existing, another way of being.
Mhm.
Sorry, the big dogs are barking.
Yeah.
There's another way of being where we are really moving from that wider awareness. And one thing I really like to think about, just to kind of bring it down to earth and make it more tangible, is what would it be like to move from enthusiasm in our life? To find the energy of enthusiasm, and from moment to moment move with where we're being drawn with enthusiasm. And that doesn't mean that when I have to do my taxes, I'm like all excited to go sit down and do my taxes, but I can be enthusiastic that I'm accomplishing something that needs to be done, and that I'm taking care of my financial life or something. It's like there are these levels of enthusiasm. So that's a way of bringing it kind of down to earth, I think.
And it is about the meaning we assign to something. It's the meaning we give things. Even events, very traumatic events, can be interpreted in many different ways. So it depends on what our perspective is, and perspective is a choice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Perspective is a choice. I choose to, I had a coach that was really tough on me and all that. And yeah, you could look at that as abuse, but you know what? The byproduct of that was he made me tougher than I believed I ever could be. So in a sense, there was a blessing in that.
It is a great gift to be able to see the lessons in the difficult, and that helps us be empowered, when we really connect to, okay, I'm going to choose to see this as, baloney and never should have happened. And yet, what are the lessons here that I can take from it?
Right.
And it's a challenge, it's a challenge. That's why we, in calm moments, why we sit down for 10 minutes and just watch how we react, watch our minds, watch those things. Because in difficult times, these practices are what really can carry us through.
Yeah. And like you said earlier, we aren't our minds. The one thing that I always remind myself is that my mind's going to lie to me, but my body's going to tell me the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm very physical. So I get into my body. If there's an ache or pain or something that's out of alignment or congested in some way, it's like there's something behind that. So dig into that and then find out where the root is.
Yeah, it's really helpful. There's that Dr. Sorno, the back doctor in the 80s, who, he was a surgeon, and he kept doing surgery on people and realizing they were still in pain, even though everything had been fixed. And he was, I think, one of the, an early advocate for, okay, sit with the pain, and what are the emotions in the pain? What are these things? Our emotions tend to kind of, he says that our emotions, we have an injury in the body, and that's where we can put all those unrepressed emotions, kind of fall into that space, and that, releasing some of those pent up things can really be helpful in dealing with pain. And I think that seems like a lot about what you're talking about, like really being attuned to, what is this pain telling me? What is this suffering telling me?
Mm-hmm.
I shy away a little bit for saying that we manifest our pain,
Mm-hmm.
just because I feel like if that's true, it's happening at such a subtle level that we don't really understand that, but I will say that we can be empowered to really, to heal and to really get close to things that are not fun to get close to.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm sitting in meditation and I'm in pain because I'm not really built to sit on the ground for hours of the day, and my hips start hurting, I can notice that as my mind is unsettled, my body hurts more. As when my body hurts, if I can go in and just observe and allow all of this difficulty and suffering and emotions to just be present, to really get close and feel, it really is a brave, courageous thing to do, because we look around, everything is telling us to avoid all of that. Right. Because it's difficult. It's really hard. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. But the benefits are incredible. I have a meditation cushion. Mm-hmm. It's In Harmony meditation cushion, and I love it. It has, it vibrates and all that stuff. And I've been having some neck issues and lower back issues, and it's like, but when I sit in that cushion and meditate, I find, that is my time of absolutely no pain. There's no pain there, and it's just like, wow. There's such relief in that, but also, letting go. Now you also talk about breath. You teach breath work and that. Do you think about, because like I remember when I was doing musicals, I would always go through the musical score and I mark where the breath goes.
Right.
So it's just like, is that something that you do, or does it just come natural?
No, I've spent quite a long time, thinking about breath and guiding people to breathe deeply, and just noticing. It's one of the first things I do when I'm drumming and I'm in a high exertion. And I notice that I'm starting to feel tense. I'm starting to not, to really be aware of tension in my body. As I'm playing, I'm trying to breathe into the limbs, into my breath. In between, I'm trying to breathe deeply into my belly and then release all the breath and rest in that out breath. Is really a magical place when there's no breath. I heard a while ago that stem cells are created if you can keep no oxygen in your body for 14 seconds. I don't know if that's true or not, but it kind of makes sense, because that is a magical place, But yeah, breath is so important, and we know that breath really has a lot to do with turning on the parasympathetic nervous system and allowing us to feel like we're safe. And to talk about that connection between mind and body, that's, if we're talking about our mind, our thoughts being fearful, trying to keep us, make sure we have enough oxygen. If our body knows that we have enough oxygen, sometimes the mind can settle. Will settle and quiet. Yeah.
It was funny because my coach, Ron O'Brien, he challenged me. He said that one of his observations is that it didn't matter what dive, if I was doing a difficult dive, a high degree of difficulty dive, or an easy dive, I always breathed through the dive. And he said, if you can teach a diver to breathe through the dive, then we might have a chance to beat the Chinese. And and so it was like I had to break it down. And so what I did, because I do dog training, And so it just made sense to me. And they actually call it tag teach. It's not clicker training, but I talked to the kids for like an hour and a half, and I was clicking. The instructions were, when you hear the click, then expel all the air out of your lungs. And so I just kept clicking through the hour and a half presentation. So they were conditioned to, when they heard the click, then they expel all their air out of their lungs. And so the next day at practice, when they were on the boards, I would click where the breaths go.
Oh, that's magical.
Oh my God. It was so amazing, because all of the kids, they said, oh my God, they were jumping 6 to 10 inches higher. They said that it was a lot more effortless, because it was supported.
Yeah.
And that's what I learned when I was a youngster dancing. I had, a teacher with a cane. If I wasn't pointing my toes or the legs weren't straight, she'd come and whack it, and she'd tell us, breathe, breathe, breathe. So having to figure out where the breath goes and how important that is, because you're oxygenating your brain, enabling you to think, and your muscles, so that they can perform at a higher level. The breath is so important.
Yeah. And you're turning off judgment.
Right.
You're turning off judgment.
Right.
Yeah. You're allowing your body to know that you're at peace, and that it's safe to do what it's been trained to do. Yeah. Yeah. That's great. I love that.
Yeah. I loved when you were talking about, how you practice. So, you go through the musical piece, and then you'll listen to it on a soundtrack, and challenge yourself without the soundtrack. Yeah. So it really is, that process of imagining yourself, the visualization, and also when you're visualizing, for me, I visualize, like if it was a high level performance like the Olympics or something like that, in my imagination, in order to relax enough to get a decent night's sleep the night before finals, then I would do visualization of my dives. It had to be in real time. So it was in real time. The stands were filled. The cameramen were the cameramen were going to be. My coach was going to be, and I would go through all of my dives, and so I created what I would see, hear, smell, taste, tapping into all of my senses to make it as real as possible. Now, do you do that when you go to, where you might be performing for, like a concert or something? And I mean, how do you make that?
Yeah, I have done that before. And, they have done studies where sitting and playing the drums in my mind as effective as sitting and playing them at the kit.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's funny when I haven't played, say we have a couple weeks off and I don't have a chance to go in and practice that much. But I am doing a lot of spiritual practice, a lot of meditation or working with clients. I come back to the drums and I'm like, this was the thing that I was working on that I was having a problem with. And yet here it is. I'm able to do it.
Right.
There's something about being able to be with it in the mind that can open things up. And also just in my meditation practice, the more I'm able to be more in my moments, let go of that judgment, the easier that everything becomes, including, something that I've been working on for quite a long time. Yeah, it's fascinating. I'm always really interested in when that happens. Yeah.
I find that with my dogs too, because I do dog agility, and so I'll be trying to work a skill, and they're not getting it, and then they get it, and then what I do is I leave it alone. And then because, a day or two and we come back to it, they know it.
They know it.
That latent learning, because even though we're not physically practicing, we're still practicing mentally.
Yeah. And it's like we know, now we know it's possible.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Now we know it's possible. And so now it's always possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like you said, it's the fear that kind of gets in our way.
Yeah. This is impossible. I've been working on this for so long and it's impossible. I'm never going to get it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We say those kind of things to us and it just reinforces it. And then we do it and we're like, oh, actually that was kind of effortless. I did it. And from now on, that's kind of the deal. Right. Yeah. It like opens up that channel. Yeah. Yeah, I've read from dog psychics, people who kind of tune into dogs, right? And they say that the way to communicate with animals psychically is to communicate in pictures. So you might actually be helping them too by seeing them, noticing, are you thinking that, this is a difficult thing for the dog, or your frustration with them not getting it, but then you see them do it and it kind of opens up that channel in your mind. And then maybe, who knows, maybe the dogs pick up on that too.
Yeah. Do you know James von Prague?
No.
Okay, he's a psychic medium. He's a dear friend of mine. He was living in Laguna Beach. He's a dear friend, and we've talked about communication and how and he feels that everybody's capable. Everybody has that capability. It's just being open to those ideas and concepts that it is possible. Like you said.
Yeah, I like to not be. I have a strong sense of skepticism, and also I always feel this sense of like, bring it on. Let me see what feels valid. Yeah.
So what is the thing that you're most proud of up to this point in your life?
I think the thing I'm most proud of is how much I've let go of the self-attack in my life. I was born here in Orange County, and there was a lot of pressure on, how I looked, how I was in the world, and early on developed a great deal of self-abuse, not being good enough. And I realized that that early pattern for me was when things weren't going wrong in my life, I would turn it in on myself. Like, it's because I'm not good enough. I'm not good, intrinsically good. There's something intrinsically bad about me. And mostly I would attack my physical appearance. And that, I feel like that thing led me into spiritual inquiry. Just what is that voice? What is this negativity? Why do I feel that I'm intrinsically bad? You try to be a good person, and what is that? And it's been deep exploration, throughout my life to come to that, and to be able to feel myself capable of unconditional love. And that is, in spiritual practice, that is the idea of being unconditionally loved by the energy that put us here, right? Whatever you call it. And that I'm very proud that I've come to that place, because what that has enabled me to do is to really open to compassion for people, all people and beings that I meet, and really want to be a light for others in that way. So I don't know that proud is the word, but it is a great relief for me that I have come through a lot of that. I mean, there's always work to do, but yeah.
Exactly. That's what was coming to mind, is that it's like, to have that unconditional love for ourselves.
Yeah.
That's because we got to start with ourselves, right? And so if we can find that unconditional love for ourselves, we can find that unconditional love for other beings. And and it is. I mean, there's good days and bad days. It's ongoing. It's a process. We sometimes, we do better, run better on some days than others, and it's okay. And that's all about the unconditional. It's like, okay, did I do my best? Did I do my best today?
Or when I do when I don't do my best, can I be compassionate for that part of myself that was in that, and I really feel like that is the energy that is going to solve the problems that we see around us.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Clem, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been awesome.
I feel like I could talk to you about this stuff forever. Yeah.
Right? We got to get together and hang out sometime. I love that. How do people keep up with you, what you're doing, where you are, social? Do you have a YouTube channel?
I have all that stuff. I don't know that I'm that great at it, but my website, kind of the hub of Clem, is clemthegreat.com. And that's, you can get my book there or on Amazon. I have an audio version of the book as well that I read.
Okay.
I'm around. Yeah.
And we're on social?
Social, it's Clementine Moss, or I think my Instagram is Clem the Great. Yeah.
Clem the Great. Okay. Yeah. Well, great. Well, thank you again for joining us. This was wonderful. And I love talking about this stuff too. It's just so incredible. And also, to connect the spiritual side of it, because a lot of times we kind of think that there's a separation, but it really is inclusive and a spiritual practice.
Yeah. Our spiritual life is our life. It is how we are in relationship to our life. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Wow. What a conversation.
Right?
Okay. It kind of reminded me of, like, if I had a little bit more knowledge on, like, the meditation front and all that, of some of the conversations you and I have. It's just like, it was a great flow, and you guys went, from this to that, to that, to that. You covered a lot of ground.
I mean, it's so interesting how everything is so connected. And really, what struck me is really the importance of meditation. That it really does, meditation, visualization, letting go of judgment. Oh my God.
Yeah. I actually really wrote down some things she said, and that was one of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It was really cool. Like, the letting go of judgment, I thought actually was, she said something about observing your thoughts, like learning, when she first started learning to observe her thoughts, and realized she can't, like, stop the thoughts from coming. And she just had to acknowledge the thoughts weren't her, and acknowledge them and let them go,
Because we so often believe we are what our mind tells us.
Yeah, sometimes it's not kind. Yeah.
And it's not kind. And, and changing those, shifting that understanding.
Yeah.
shifting that understanding that our mind lies to us and our mind isn't who we are.
Yeah. Well, she also mentioned about like most of the times if we're not like mindful of that, we're functioning from a space of fear. And what if, I love how she just asked this question, what if we were moving in a space of enthusiasm?
Right.
Which reminded me of like when we've talked about like how you do coaching and stuff. And if someone's in a space of fear, like turn that into excitement. It's the same energy in the body, just trick your brain into this is excitement. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. And I love that enthusiasm heard that from Dr. Wayne Dyer, enthuse is in spirit or, something like that. And it's like if we move into spirit and, that's where, the spiritual practice, where does the spirituality of that, but it's all spiritual. It's all mindful. So yeah, it's all connected.
I enjoyed that. I was really happy to be listening.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining today's episode of Greg Louganis is Alive. Please like, subscribe, and share this episode with someone you love. Namaste.
Yay Networks.